Finding Nemo, the ghost light fish. Have a great day, Nemo, Marlin the clownfish said as he hugged his son goodbye. He and Dory, a regal blue tangfish, were dropping Nemo off at school. I will, Dad, said Nemo, just as soon as you let go. Marlin realized he was still hugging his son. Oh, right, he said with a chuckle, letting Nemo go. Bye, Dad. Bye, Dory, Nemo called as he swam off to join his classmates and their teacher, Mr. Ray. Nemo loved school, and so did his friends, Tad the long-nosed butterfly fish, Pearl the octopus, and Sheldon the seahorse. How could they not when Mr. Ray made everything so much fun? Mr. Ray took his students exploring all over the reef. Every day, Nemo and his classmates got an up-close look at different kinds of sea life. That day, Mr. Ray was taking them to a clearing on the ocean floor. Okay, explorers, Mr. Ray said when the class arrived. Now it's time to do a little searching on your own. Let's see if each of you can find a shell. Then we'll identify them together. The students fanned out. Nemo searched in the shadows of some coral. Pearl peeked into a bit of algae. Sheldon dug in the sand. Tad was the first of Nemo's friends to find something. Hey guys, he cried, look at this. Nemo, Pearl, and Sheldon swam over to their friend. They stared in wonder at the gleaming white shell Tad held in his fin. Cool, said Sheldon. It's so pretty, said Pearl. Where did you find it? Tad pointed to a cave. In there, he said. Hey, maybe there are more, he added, suddenly darting inside. Yeah, maybe, said Pearl, following him. I want to find one too. Me too, cried Sheldon, taking off after the pair. Then he paused and turned to Nemo. Are you coming? He asked. Nah, you guys go on, Nemo said. He wanted to find a shell that was different from everyone else's. Only a few minutes passed before Nemo heard an odd noise. He looked up and saw Sheldon, Tad, and Pearl bolting out of the cave at full speed. What's the matter? Nemo asked. Is it a barracuda? An eel? Sheldon shook his head. His eyes were big. His tail was quivering in fright. No, worse, he said. It's a ghost fish. No way, Nemo replied. Then he noticed Tad's fin was empty. Where's your shell? He asked. Aw, shucks, Tad sighed. I was going to give it to my mom. Bet I dropped it in the cave. But I'm not going back in there. Not with that ghost fish on the loose. Don't worry, Nemo told Tad. I'll find your shell for you. Nemo swam bravely into the cave. See, he said to himself, nothing to be afraid of here. But just then, Nemo froze. On the cave wall next to him was a huge fish-shaped shadow. Nemo took a deep breath. Excuse me, Mr. Ghostfish. Or is it Ms. Ghostfish? He called. A ghostfish? A tiny voice said nervously. Where? Don't let it get me! The ghostfish didn't sound very scary, thought Nemo. Nemo swam closer to the shadow. There, cowering behind a rock, was a little fish, glowing softly. The ghostfish wasn't a ghostfish at all. It was just a little glow-in-the-dark fish who had shined on a piece of coral and made the spooky shadow. Oh, hi, Nemo called. He wasn't afraid anymore, but the little glowing fish was. It darted behind another rock. Then, timidly, it peeked out. Don't be afraid, Nemo said. I'm just a little fish, like you. My name's Nemo. What's yours? Nemo asked the little fish. Eddie, he cautiously replied. You mean there's no ghost fish? Nemo chuckled. I thought you were the ghost fish, he said. Then he explained the whole story. By the way, said Nemo, how do you glow like that? Eddie shrugged. I just do, he said. My whole family does. Nemo thought of someone who would know more about Eddie's glow. Mr. Ray. Would you like to come out and meet my teacher and my friends? Nemo asked Eddie. Okay, said the little fish. And And so they swam out of the cave together, laughing at the funny way they'd met. Outside, Nemo rejoined his class. "Sorry I didn't find your shell," he said to Tad. "But I did find your ghost fish." Then Nemo and Eddie told their story. Soon the ghost fish was forgotten. Everyone wanted to know about Eddie instead. "Can you glow different colors?" Pearl asked Eddie. "How come the water doesn't put out your light?" asked Tad. Nemo wanted to know what made Eddie glow. Luckily, Mr. Ray knew the answer to that. "See these patches on Eddie's jaws?" said Mr. Ray. "Inside them are teeny tiny glow-in-the-dark organisms. When you see Eddie glow, you're really seeing those organisms glowing." "If you think that's cool," said Eddie, "you should see the rest of my family." Eddie led the whole class into the cave to show them his glow-in-the-dark world, including his family. Nemo thought it was one of the most amazing things he'd ever seen. But there was still one thing on his mind. "Mr. Ray," Nemo whispered to his teacher, "I didn't finish the assignment. I didn't find a shell." Mr. Ray laughed. "That's okay, Nemo," he replied. "I'd say you still get an A in exploring for today."
I found a game for buddies. You basically control the ball with telekinesis.
Finding Nemo, a friend in need. Nemo and his friends were about to go on their first expedition to Kelp Canyon. Marlin and Dory were their guides. First, Dory went over the safety rules. Rule number 1, never leave your buddy behind. Everyone listened closely. Everyone except for a greenfish named Ward. "I already know about safety. I could lead this trip myself," grumbled Ward. After Dory finished the rules, the group set off. Soon, they came across Bruce the shark. "G'day," said Bruce. "Ah!" screamed the fish. They had never seen a shark up close before. "Don't worry," said Nemo. "Bruce is my friend." Just then, a plant caught Marlin's eye. "Now, this is a plant to avoid," Marlin told the group. "It can give you an itchy rash." "Ooh! Ah!" Marlin started scratching. He'd accidentally touched the plant. "Sorry, kids," said Marlin. "I've got to get home. You can't go without 2 leaders, so we'll have to cancel the trip." "I can be a leader," Ward suggested. But the other fish weren't so sure this was a good idea. Then Nemo had another idea. What if Bruce is Dory's co-leader? Marlin thought for a moment. "Well, I suppose that would be all right. Just be careful," he told them as he swam off for home. "I'd love to help you, mates," Bruce said. "How'd you like to explore a sunken pirate ship instead of Kelp Canyon?" "Yeah!" exclaimed almost all the fish. "Doesn't that sound exciting, mate?" Bruce asked Ward. "We don't need you," Ward said jealously, "and I'm not your mate. I'll show this shark who should be co-leader," Ward thought to himself. Bruce led the group to the old sunken pirate ship. "Here we are, mates," he said. "Cool," cried Tad. Nemo thought it looked a little scary and dangerous, but exciting too. "I can't wait to go exploring," he told Bruce. Inside the wreck, Ward led Bruce to the ship's deck. "I think I saw a fish stuck in that cage," Ward said. "Really? I've got to help him," Bruce said, swimming off. But something didn't seem right to Nemo. "Bruce!" Nemo cried. "Look out! It's a trap!" But it was too late. The cage door closed behind Bruce with a slam. "Ward!" shouted Nemo. "You locked up my friend!" "Good!" Ward shouted back. "Now I can co-lead." "Don't worry, Bruce," Nemo told the shark as Ward swam away. "I'll help you out." He tried, but it was no use. The door was stuck. "I'll get Dory," said Nemo. "Maybe she can help." "I need help," Nemo told Dory. "Ward locked Bruce in a big cage." "We don't need him. I can be the leader," Ward declared. The other fish couldn't believe it. "You locked up Bruce? But he's our friend," they said. Ward suddenly felt nervous. He darted beneath the floorboard to hide. But he got stuck. And when the others tried to pull him out, they weren't strong enough. "Just go home," Ward grumbled. "I don't need anyone's help." "No way," said Nemo. "Remember rule number 1? Never leave your buddy behind." "I'll bet Bruce could get Ward out," said Dory. "But first, we'd have to rescue Bruce." Dory told the other fish to stay put. Then she and Nemo raced off. At the cage, they pushed and pulled as hard as they could to free Bruce, but the cage door wouldn't budge. "Bruce, you've got to break free. Ward's stuck and needs your help," Nemo said. That was all Bruce needed to hear. Crack! He broke through the cage. Then he swam to Ward and set him free. "Hooray!" shouted the fish. "I'm sorry," Ward told Bruce as they headed home. "I guess I have a lot to learn. I thought I was ready to be a co-leader." "No worries," Bruce said kindly. "I shouldn't have taken you to such a dangerous place. I guess we both have a lot to learn. So, are we mates?" Ward grinned a big grin. "Mates," he told his new friend. A little later, Nemo swam over to Bruce. "Thanks for saving Ward, even though he wasn't being very nice," Nemo said. "It was nothing, mate," replied Bruce. "Besides, that's what friends are for."